Hello, this is Soundout here, and welcome to a new type of video. I don't know what to call this exactly, but we'll be talking about every movie I've seen in 2021, Part 1. This is going to be from January to June. I started keeping a log this year of what day I watched what movie, so I figured let's convert it into a video format. Instead of waiting till the end of the year and making this like a 3-hour video, we're going to do just the first half. So, let's get started. So basically I'm going to mention each movie, whether I'd seen it before or not, why I wanted to watch it, and then brief thoughts. Sometimes very brief, sometimes too much. We'll find out as we go along. I'm kind of just winging it. So, without further ado, let's begin. So, starting up, January 1st, I watched Die Hard with a Vengeance. This is the third Die Hard movie. Starting Christmas, watched Die Hard, and then we watched Die Hard 2, and then Die Hard 3, and then I decided I was out, because Die Hard 3 was actually really fun. I wasn't really sure how they could top it, and Die Hard 4 has less charismatic older Bruce Willis, so I was like, you know what, maybe I'm done here, and yeah, it's been 6 months and I haven't gone back to any more. But I really did like Die Hard with a Vengeance. It had Samuel L. Jackson in it, which is great. The dynamic between the characters was really awesome, and honestly, quite a fun time. Next up, January 8th, I watched Kamen Rider Wizard in Magic Land. Why? I can't remember. I just felt like watching it. This is actually one of my favorite summer movies for Kamen Rider. Wizard's actually one of my favorite shows. I know, weird opinion that most people don't actually agree with, but I actually really enjoyed Wizard. And honestly, its summer movie was pretty dang good. It was one of those films where it took place in an alternate universe, but it had the main characters we knew being transported to one where everyone could use magic, and I thought that was kind of neat. And there was neat actor fulfillment too, because a lot of the actors from the show got to become Kamen Riders in that movie. So honestly, really like that one. January 9th, I watched Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze. This movie was entirely inspired by me getting the NECA, Tokar, and Razor 2-pack in. It finally showed up, and I was like, well, I want to watch Secret of the Ooze, because it's been a while. Personally speaking, I own, all the Ninja Turtles movies on Blu-ray. The first one, I really like it a lot. It's very Mirage-inspired, very cool, very nice, like, indie movie feel. 2 is actually pretty fun, too. It's got a bigger budget, but still has a lot of that practical charm that I really do appreciate. And Toka and Razar are two of the most amazing Creature Shop creations from Jen Henson's Creature Shop, so I really like it. I haven't watched any other movies this year. It's the only Ninja Turtles movie, but yeah, I watched Secret of the Ooze, and actually really enjoyed it. So, next up, on January 12th, we had a new release, Batman Soul of the Dragon. This movie was pretty cool. It takes place in the 1970s, kind of a kung fu-inspired era, and it features Batman in his training with different martial arts masters, such as Bronze Tiger, Lady Shiva, and, of course, Richard Dragon. And they got actual martial arts actors to play these characters. So, really great movie. If you haven't checked it out, totally worth a pickup. January 14th, I watched Kamen Rider Den-O, The Birth of Pretty Den-O. This was a cute little film that was released as part of a Toei festival, and it essentially, the plot involves Den-O traveling back in time, and they end up running into, of course, Neo Shocker, who's a Reiwa Shocker, and they end up fighting alongside this little girl who becomes Den-O, hence the name Pretty Den-O. And it's adorable. Movie is great. It's got a lot of great references to Kamen Rider Black RX, because they time traveled in 1989, which I thought was pretty neat. So if you haven't checked it out yet, definitely worth it if you like Den-O stuff. January 16th, we had a twofer. First of all, watched Ghost in the Shell in 4K for the first time. I bought the 4K, and I hadn't watched the entire film. I mostly just checked it out. I know I'd put this as my number one for 2020's Blu-ray releases, and honestly, it still holds up incredibly well. I just hadn't had a chance to watch the entire film yet, so I did that. Totally rectified not having seen the entire thing. Absolutely amazing audio mix, absolutely amazing visual mix. Just a great film that had a great release. Also on January 16th, ended up watching Tango and Cash for the first time. This is a movie my parents recommended. It was hilarious. This is Kurt Russell and Sylvester Stallone in a buddy comedy action thriller. Great stuff. It was made in the 80s, which is probably my favorite era for media, honestly. And I loved it. Just great humor, great action, a lot of memorable lines. I will never, ever forget what foobar means. Great movie. I can't wait to watch it again. Alright, January 24th, I watched Kamen Rider Agito Project G4 Director's Cut. I was watching Agito at the time, so this kind of rolled into my watch-through. Agito's film is actually really good in the sense that it gives you a story that takes place concurrent to the series that's not just in one time period. It actually takes place over the course of 6 months and shows the failed G4 project. The movie is also incredibly depressing and dark, so keep that in mind going in. There is some moments in that movie that I was like, wow, even for early Heisei Kamen Rider, this is rough. So I was actually pretty impressed with that, and yeah, it's honestly pretty solid, but it's worth watching alongside Agito as well, which has become one of my favorite Kamen Rider shows. Alright, January 30th began a period of my time I like to call the Kaiju Binge. I had the idea that this year I would watch essentially all the Godzilla and Toho monster films leading up to Godzilla vs. Kong, which was originally scheduled for a May release. I figured I had about 5 months to do it, so I wasn't in a big rush. And then Godzilla vs. Kong moved up to March 24th, and I was like, oh, I got less time now. And then Arrow Video's regular edition Gamera Blu-rays came out, like, right in the beginning of January, so this became 3 months of straight kaiju. So I'm going to roll through these pretty quick, because I have thoughts, but not super deep ones. So, starting off, January 30th, Gamera, the original film. Honestly pretty solid. It's in black and white, which is unusual for kaiju films. Most of them were in color, but I did actually really appreciate it. Gamera's definitely terrifying monster, less so than Friend to Children, and I actually really liked seeing where Gamera started. It was a pretty neat evolution. Continuing forward, February 1st, watched both Gamera vs. Baragon and Gamera vs. Gios. Gamera vs. Gios is definitely my favorite of the series. It's really fun. I watched the English dubs for both of these. They're pretty kind of enjoyable films. I think Gamera vs. Baragon had like a direction problem. That movie definitely felt like the director wanted to make a heist movie about broken people trying to steal gold, and then was also told he had to make a movie where a turtle fights a dragon thing. So this one I don't think Baragon worked as well, but I really did enjoy Gauss. It was probably the top of the show era for me. Slight deviation, February 2nd, I watched the live-action Hurricane Palomar film. That's never been released officially in North America. Found some fan subs for it. It was a Koichi Sakamoto directed movie based on an anime that constantly gets canceled because nobody likes it that much. I don't regret watching it because it had Mikihara in it, but that's all I got to say. February 3rd, we have Gamera vs. Viras, which is the original, the English dub. So Gamera vs. Viras, this is honestly pretty neat as a film, because I actually kind of like the way that it took a different approach with its kaiju. And then Gamera vs. Guron, which I was surprised at how much kaiju violence there was in that one. There was limbs chopped, which was actually pretty neat. Also, February 3rd, watched Gamera vs. Giger, which I was just on Gamera at that point. And then February 4th, watched Gamera vs. Zigra and Gamera Super Monster. Giger and Zigra, I don't have too much to say about. They're kind of just more Gamera. Super Monster's garbage. There's no new kaiju footage. Galaxy Express 999 shows up randomly out of nowhere. It's a bunch of stuff cut together, and this kid just encounters, like, 3 women athletes in spandex. I got nothing. It was an experience. By the way, a lot of these earlier kaiju films were really short, so Zigra and Super Monster was also February 4th. Same day, watched King Kong from 1933, one of my favorite films of all time. Absolutely amazing pioneer in the monster genre, as well as a pioneer for stop-motion work, and honestly, love this movie. It still holds up really well. I think it is probably the best telling of the original Kong story in its original setting, which I really, really like. I've studied this film over the years as a film student. It's just amazing. I love watching it every single time. And of course, the same day, just to follow it up, Son of Kong, which I actually hadn't seen before. Son of Kong's actually kind of an interesting one because it's one of those movies where it's actually a sequel that deals with consequences of the first one. The guy that caused all the problems in the first Kong movie gets sued in this one. Has to pay out for all the people that died. Isn't that great? I actually really did enjoy that part of it. And otherwise, it's kind of neat. Essentially follows up on Kong, finds the Son of Kong on the island. It's pretty straightforward. So if you like the first one, you'll probably like this one. Continuing forward into Kaiju World, February 5th was Pacific Rim. If you notice, my Kaiju binge was a little out of order. I wanted to get Gamera done first. I hadn't seen those Showa Gamera films. I wanted to start fresh with Kong and then start kind of basically run everything chronologically. But then Pacific Rim the Black was coming out on Netflix in March, so I was like, well, let's push these forward. So we had Pacific Rim. This is a film I've started to like more over the years. I think initially there was so much hype around it that I didn't feel like it lived up to it. But I really think it has a lot of great potential for further stories, especially with Pacific Rim the Black on Netflix. I think that's the best expansion of the Pacific Rim story into another medium, and that being animation, and I really liked it. So Pacific Rim, watching it again, it was a fun time. I still think one of my biggest problems in the movie is how easy the Jaegers are defeated, because it seems like they never actually did anything in the first place, and that all of the action sequences were shot at night in the rain. Not a big fan of that. On February 6th, this was interesting, I didn't watch it on Blu-ray, but Discotek Media hosted a Twitch live premiere of their dub for Memories. Now, Memories is an anthology film featuring Magnetic Rose, Stink Bomb, and Cannon Fodder, and I actually watched it with my parents. Wasn't exactly sure what to expect. I knew the creatives behind it, and I'd wanted to see it for a while, but I'd never actually found a way of watching it. Discotek announced they licensed it. I was going to pick up the Blu-ray regardless, but after seeing it, I had to. This is an amazing anthology film. It's 3 different stories. There's not really a focus. Like, it's not like some other anthology films like Robot Carnival where the focus is like robots. This is kind of just 3 separate stories, but it's gorgeous. It's amazing. If you have a chance to watch this, I think it started to stream on other platforms, but Discotek, just amazing work, not only with the visual restoration, but also the English dub. Well done stuff. Absolutely recommended. Alright, so February 7th, getting back on track, Pacific Rim Uprising. This is a movie that's not that great, honestly, but I did enjoy it. It's got more of a super robot feel than a kaiju feel, which I kind of appreciated. And I actually like all the action sequences being shot during the daytime in this one. It was a nice parallel to the previous film. And yeah, there's some problems with it, but honestly, this is John Boyega's best action part I've seen him in. I wish he had been this cool in Star Wars, because, hey, guy can act, and his British accent is the most badass thing that I've seen in a long time. So, honestly, cast John Boyega in more action movies. That's my general pitch here. But yeah, Pacific Rim Uprising, it's not great, but I enjoy watching it. So, moving along back into Kaijuville proper, we get back into chronological order with Godzilla. It may be that I've seen this movie too much. There is a certain point where you've seen a movie too much, and then it starts losing its effect on you. I studied this film. I wrote a research paper for high school on this movie, and that was my graduation requirement paper. Got an A, top of the class, all thanks to this movie. I was studying its themes of course, nuclear war, World War II analogs, and every other theme that's been discussed a lot about this film. And it was one of those first times I was studying a film for the sake of its context and its themes, as opposed to just its story or its characters. So that actually gave me a different mentality towards film. That being said, watching it again, I watch it in original Japanese. I don't watch the re-edit. I think I just end up taking a nap in the middle. And it's nothing against the film. It's amazing, groundbreaking work, but unlike King Kong, where I can watch that one and be totally awake, this one does kind of put me to sleep in the middle, and it's probably just because I've studied it so much. But it was kind of interesting going back to the movie and going like, huh, yeah, I'm not like engaged and awake the whole time. So going on to February 10th, we had Godzilla Raids Again, which I have in this nice Criterion book. I cleared a goal in Digimon Vital Bracelet. Okay, let's start that over. We'll go back to Raids Again. So next up, Godzilla Raids Again, which of course was in this nice Criterion set. I'll just hold the poster up for these. So Godzilla Raids Again, of course, was the debut of Anguirus, and honestly, not one of my favorites. I enjoy the film. It's pretty nice. It's a good sequel to Godzilla, but it's just not one of my favorites. I've watched other Godzilla films I enjoy a lot more, and I really don't have anything else beyond that. So, yeah. Sorry if I don't have anything further. And then February 10th, we had Rodan. So Rodan is one of my favorite kaiju films. I wish I had a Blu-ray. This DVD doesn't do it justice. It's honestly pretty nice. It's kind of neat because when you've seen other Godzilla films, you always see one Rodan floating around. But it turns out there's two, and they were twins, and this is the story of how humanity kills one of them. That's not a spoiler or anything, because later films, but it's kind of neat because it recontextualizes the other movies. So if you've never seen Rodan, you actually kind of get an experience that's a little different, and it kind of makes you feel sadder when you see Rodan in, like, Destroy All Monsters, and you're like, oh, he's alone. So, anyways, I really love Rodan, one of my favorite kaiju films of all time. Alright, February 11th was a busy day for me because I was trying to clear through as much Showa as possible, as quick as possible. So, first up we have The Mysterians. Now, The Mysterians is interesting because it's a kaiju film that's not a kaiju film. It's more about alien invaders, and it's kind of interesting. I'd never seen it before. It's part of the reason why I want to do this kaiju binge is there was gaps of movies I'd never seen. Honestly, probably would watch that one again. Next up, Varan. Now, Varan is a movie I would watch for sure. Varan actually was pretty interesting because it kind of took the element of like kaiju as animals and expanded on that a bit further, which I thought was actually pretty neat. So overall, if you haven't seen some of these other like Toho films, Varan's probably my top recommendation. After Varan was Mothra, which Mill Creek put up this great Blu-ray of it. Mothra, also another one of my favorites. I used to see this one a lot on TCM when they'd air it. Same with Rodan. And it's neat to see these, what have become Godzilla characters, in their own standalone films prior to being in Godzilla films. They're sort of like the proto-Avengers. The MCU really should give credit to Toho for this idea, because Mothra later fights Godzilla, Rodan later fights Godzilla, and other monsters, so it kind of all becomes this connected universe of independent films. But yeah, Mothra, another great classic Showa film. Continuing forward, that evening, watched Godzilla vs. King Kong, the original. The original Japanese is just only in the Criterion set legally. Absolutely much better in original Japanese. The dub's fine, but it cuts out too much of the film in my opinion. I think a lot of the context, especially with a lot of the conflict between companies, they're like, oh, Godzilla's taking all our press, we gotta get King Kong so that he can be our mascot. And that kind of plays into the whole prophetizing Kong element of the original RKO Kong movies. So I really did like that. Also, Gorath. I got not much to say about Gorath. It's a movie. Alright, moving on. February 12th, Matango. Another not-so-kaiju movie. It's an invasive species of mushrooms that takes over people like the Borg from Star Trek. I like Star Trek. So I actually really liked it because it was kind of a surrealist thriller, and it had a lot more in common, I think, with The Thing than traditional kaiju films, but it still fits within the Toho kaiju, the kaiju eiga style. So it was kind of a neat mix of different genres, and I really did like that. Definitely recommend that one. February 13th, randomly watched Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. I don't really need an excuse to watch this movie. This is one that, yeah, another one of those movies that I've watched a bunch of times. But this one never loses its charm. I think I've seen it 10, 15 times in my life, and it never loses its charm. I just watched it again, like a week ago, just about a week ago, because they put out a 4K release with the new Dolby Vision version. So, a movie I could watch anytime. Lots of fun. If you haven't heard of it, go look it up. If you haven't seen it, find it on a streaming service, check it out. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. There's really no mid-ground. But yeah, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, great film. February 15th, I watched Atragon again. This is my second time watching it. I think I enjoyed it more. Last time I watched it, it was kind of, had to watch it for a podcast. This time I was watching it for myself, and yeah, Atragon is about a spaceship, or a battleship with a drill in the front, the Tango, and its mission to discover a lost empire. It is weird. It is a weird movie, but I like weird movies. So Atragon. And then also the same day, February 15th, Dogora. Dogora was one of those movies where, I think there was a Twitter thread going around where someone was like, what movie that has no sex scenes needed a sex scene to be interesting? And my answer is Dogora. That's all I got. February 18th, Mothra vs. Godzilla. So this was a rewatch. I've seen this movie a bunch. Mothra vs. Godzilla, total classic. It was fun watching this after watching Mothra again, because the films are connected in a lot of ways. They have similar themes, especially with Mothra being more savior, but humanity sees Mothra as a threat, and that kind of element to it is pretty neat. Same day, Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. Another classic. I really do like this one. It's probably my favorite of the Ghidorah films of the Showa era, but honestly, it's great. And then, following that up the same day, Invasion of Astro Monster. I was just binging at this point. This one's got Rodan in it. This one's weird. It's got Exilians in it. It's just bizarre. Godzilla dances. It's weird. I don't even know if I actually like it as much as I should, but there it is. February 19th, I watched Frankenstein vs. Baragon, also known as Frankenstein Conquers the World. I watched the octopus cut, because there's a cut of the movie called the octopus cut, because it has a random octopus scene at the end, because I think Aegis Tsuburaya got hungry after he ate that octopus from King Kong vs. Godzilla. Anyways, Frankenstein fights Baragon, defeats Baragon, then fights an octopus in this version. If you watch the regular cut, he doesn't fight the octopus. So, make your choice as is. Really solid film, great acting on the human cast. I thought they were exceptional. And, yeah, that's something I want on a Blu-ray at some point. February 20th, War of the Gargantuas, or, there's like a really long Japanese title. Frankenstein no Kaiju Sanda Taigaida. It's the second Frankenstein movie. You know, Varan was like Toho's Dracula. Frankenstein was Toho's Frankenstein. This is a two kaiju fight movie. It's packaged with Rodan. I don't know why this DVD set is like this, but these are movies that deserve Blu-ray releases in North America. Absolutely loved it. Both Frankenstein movies, pretty solid. I think I like Frankenstein versus Baragon a little bit more. But Frankenstein, or War of the Gargantuas, it's still pretty good. February 22nd, this was another, holy cow, did I just watch a lot of movies. First up, Ebirah, Horror of the Deep, the Godzilla film that was originally a King Kong movie. Yep, just take my word for it, or look it up. This movie is actually pretty fun. It takes place at sea, which I think is pretty neat. Honestly, it's kaiju at sea with Mothra and Godzilla. The next movie, King Kong's Counterattack, and I do say this specifically because I did have to go find the Japanese version. Universal's kind of locked this away. It's known as King Kong Escapes in English, but King Kong's Counterattack, a title I like more, is probably the best King Kong movie, like, ever. It's got, like, the actor that played Dr. Shinigami in Kamen Rider as the main villain, who's trying to use Kong's power and builds a Mechana-Kong. It's got homages to the original 30s Kong, where they replaced the Empire State Building with Tokyo Tower. Great human cast and a lot of great emotional acting. And they really do wrap in Kong as a character and not just a monster, which is really, really cool. And then the same day, just because I'm rolling along, Son of Godzilla, the wonderfully cute film with Manila. Honestly, it's adorable. I loved this movie the first time I watched it, and I loved this movie the second time I watched it. February 23rd, of course, was Destroy All Monsters, a classic where pretty much every kaiju that previously existed shows up. It takes place at some weird point in the future. If you haven't seen it, go watch it if you like kaiju movies. After Destroy All Monsters, February 26th, Space Amoeba. That was another one of those, that was a kaiju film. It was weird. I liked it. And then we had Godzilla vs. Hedorah. We had All Monsters Attack first. I actually forgot to write this down. All Monsters Attack's like Gamera's Super Monster, except not as bad. It's mostly kind of a weird clip show, but then they also include new stuff, so it gets points above Super Monster. Then we have Godzilla vs. Hedorah. This is Environmental Message, the kaiju movie. Guys, pollution's bad. That's all I learned through an hour and a half of song. February 27th, probably, maybe my favorite Showa film, Godzilla vs. Gigan, has one of the most charismatic human casts I've ever seen in a kaiju film. Just absolute blast. Great cast, crazy stuff like a Godzilla theme park tower that Godzilla goes to war with, and of course, secret aliens that are trying to destroy things. After that, we have the film I actually never saw until now, which was Godzilla vs. Megalon. This one's known for having Jet Jaguar. And honestly, Megalon, it's alright. I don't think it was spectacular. I really wonder, though. Jet Jaguar's creators definitely seemed like they were a little bit more than just best friends, and I wish the movie would have explored that further. February 28th, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. A classic. An absolute classic. And then also, March 1st, Terror of Mechagodzilla. I'm gonna put this book down. Terror of Mechagodzilla, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, both classics. They're a great way to wrap out the Showa era for Toho. Honestly, recommend them both. March 4th, King Kong, 1976. I didn't get to watch this on Blu-ray. I watched it on HBO because Blu-ray wasn't out yet. But this movie I actually really liked. I'd never seen it before, so this was my first time. It's got Jeff Bridges in it. It's got Jessica Lange in her first feature role. And this is a movie that has such a weird production history because they tried to do a full-size Kong animatronic that didn't work, and they ended up just having Rick Baker wear a Kong suit, which honestly probably was more convincing anyways. Really lavish, really big budget, and what I really like about it was a remake of 33 Kong in the similar story of people go to Island to grab Kong, or go to Island for another reason. Like maybe they're getting oil, and then they end up taking Kong, and then they start prioritizing Kong as like a mascot for a gas company, and then everything goes haywire from there. And yeah, so I really like this one because it told a different story. It was the same setup as 33 Kong, but it wasn't taking place in 33, it took place in 76. It had modern things like oil tycoons and had a lot of good stuff, and they changed the location of Kong's climb from the Empire State Building to the World Trade Center's Twin Towers, which this movie actually gave me a better perspective of the interiors of those buildings and how hard it would be to escape, because there was a minute-long scene where Jeff Bridges is running from one staircase to another, or one elevator to another. It's like everything was all spread out. So it gave me kind of an interesting perspective on those buildings and what happened to them later. But this is a great film. It's well made. There is some weird effects work, but it's been cleaned up on this new Blu-ray because they actually rematted the film so that the effects would line up. But yeah, this is probably the best it's going to look, and yeah, if you want a Kong movie that's different than 33 Kong, but still in that same vein, definitely check this one out. Okay, now that I talked about that movie too long, next movie, March 5th, King Kong Lives. This was the sequel to King Kong. This was in 1986, I think, so it was like 10 years later. Linda Hamilton plays a doctor who revives Kong with an artificial heart. And then they find a lady King Kong. And then they try to mate. It is an experience. It deserves a Blu-ray only because it is so insane that I can't believe it exists. Anyways, King Kong Lives. That was actually kind of a fun trip. Okay, next up on March 6th, we watched Man of Steel. And sometimes I'll say we, because we as a family watched it. So, prepping for Zack Snyder's Justice League, Man of Steel rewatch. Hadn't watched this one in a while, actually, and honestly really enjoy it. When I first saw this movie, I think I was kind of off-put by a different depiction of Superman, but the more I've seen it in the years since, I've honestly really come to like it. It's got a lot of great new ideas. There are some dumb ones. Jonathan Kent's death is probably one of the dumbest things I've seen in film history. No denying that. But honestly, as a movie, a whole package as a movie, I actually really enjoy it. And I kind of like the idea of, like, what if our current world encountered Superman? And that's kind of what the crux of the film is, and leads into the next movie. So honestly, a movie I've come to really appreciate and enjoy. So, Man of Steel. March 7th, Return of Godzilla. This is one that I actually hadn't seen. I even owned it on Blu-ray. This is the big return for the Heisei era, except it took years for the next movie to come out. Pretty great film overall. Really great effects work. Pretty solid over in general. Personally, I like multi-kaiju films, but you know, it's kind of a solo kaiju film for a lot of it. And yeah, it's a great return to form. Next up, one I like a lot more, Godzilla vs. Biollante, probably my favorite of the Heisei era. Great film. Oh my gosh, the actual effects work for Biollante being this giant plant monster in the sea. Amazing. Weird 90s stuff exists. Like, there are super soldiers out of nowhere, and there's, like, rival gangs. Almost like a third of the movie's in English, even in Japanese. is nuts. This movie's great. It does a lot of great new things, new and exciting stuff. It doesn't retread anything from the Showa era. I wish it did better at the box office, but because of Back to the Future coming out in Japan, it didn't, and Toho went into recycle mode. So, let's talk about that. Because March 10th, I watched, if I can get my stacks right, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. I don't like this movie at all. Like, if you're talking about my least favorite Godzilla movie, it's that one right there. This movie kind of makes me upset because the overt themes of Japanese imperialism is kind of disgusting, because it's something that, like, it essentially glorifies Japan's imperialism during World War II as a good thing. In a kaiju movie, which usually are telling us messages for the future, this movie's misguided. It also has weird time travel that makes no sense, and honestly, it could be deleted from existence and I wouldn't care. So, Godzilla vs. Mothra Battle for Earth, just felt a lot of retready. Yeah, it's got Batra, but it did feel kind of so similar to Mothra vs. Godzilla. So, there's that. I also watched the Guyver. This was for Ninja Talks, and yeah, the Guyver. Had to watch it for a show. I couldn't decide if this movie wanted to be really adult or really childlike, and I don't think it could decide either. It had the tonal consistency of Big Bad Beetleborgs, and then also the same time the tonal consistency of a hard R horror film. Comedy was like Beetleborgs, the action was like a horror film. I don't know what this movie was trying to do. May not ever watch it again. March 11th, let's start blowing through the Heisei trilogy with Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. I actually like this one. It's pretty fun. It's a good follow-up to Mechagodzilla's previous entries. It's not a direct sequel, it's obviously new continuity, but it's got Rodan in it, so that gives it bonus points. Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, also March 11th. Another movie I kind of like. Space Godzilla is just evil asshole Godzilla from space. I kind of like it. Baby Godzilla's cute too. And then Godzilla vs. Destroyer destroys my feelings. This movie is sad and depressing. It is the end of the Heisei Godzilla. It is sad on so many levels. I only watch it when I'm watching every movie. Then we've got, starting into the March 13th, we've got Gamera, the Guardian of the Universe, which was the only Gamera film I'd watched prior to getting the Blu-rays. This movie amazing. This movie great. I can't recommend it enough. They reintroduced Gios as the antagonist monster. They reintroduced Gamera as a heroic character from the beginning, which gives it a whole different vibe than the Godzilla films that had been coming out in the Heisei era. So, Gamera Guardian of the Universe, absolutely amazing movie. Same evening, rewatch Batman v Superman Ultimate Edition. Only the Ultimate Edition is watched in this household, because that is the only version of this movie that should be watched. Another movie I didn't like that much when I first saw it, but upon seeing its full version and understanding the themes and characters, and especially understanding how everything relates to itself, and then also later Justice League, it's a movie I actually really enjoy. It's a brilliant second part of a trilogy, but I don't know if it works as well on its own. But I've come to appreciate it a lot more. March 14th was a twofer. We got Gamera 2, Attack of Legion, and Gamera 3, Revenge of Iris, following up on the great Gamera Guardian of the Universe. Gamera 3 surprised me. I actually hadn't seen either of these, but 3 really surprised me, and the Legion effects in 2 were really cool. So, honestly, the Heisei trilogy of Gamera, top tier stuff. March 16th, I was very busy because I watched the entire Rebirth of Mothra trilogy, which is how anyone should watch it, because none of these movies work as well on their own as they do as a trilogy. The story of Mothra Leo is one that should be enjoyed by all. Honestly, if I was living in Japan at the time, I wouldn't want Godzilla to come back. I just want more Mothra movies, because these are excellent. And it's a shame we haven't had any solo Mothra films since. Get on it, Toho. And then I also watched Gundam F91 for its 30th anniversary. This is a movie that's a whole bag of worms that I'm not opening right now, but if you like pretty robot action, it's got pretty robot action. March 17th, following up Guyver, Guyver Dark Hero. The fact I have Guyver Dark Hero on DVD and not Guyver should tell you all why I like this movie more. This was the one that committed to being a R-rated horror action mix, and it went for it. It went more accurate to the original source material for Guyver, and I really, really enjoyed it. Top of the line, definitely recommended. Also that same day, for whatever reason, I watched Justice League Doom, one of my favorite DC movies. It's the Legion of Doom gets Batman's contingency plans for defeating the Justice League and eventually attacks the Justice League with it. Pretty great story, a lot of great conflict, really great voice cast. It's the DCAU cast plus Nathan Fillion for Hal Jordan. Good stuff. And then the same evening, I also watched Justice League vs. the Fatal Five. I think I just wanted to watch Justice League stuff. I was hyped for the Snyder Cut. This is the follow-up to Justice League Unlimited. Absolutely amazing movie. If you've watched JLU and you loved it, you owe it to yourself to watch this. March 18th, we had Godzilla 1998. This movie actually I enjoyed better this time. It's one that I don't like that much. I find Godzilla the series, the animated series that spun out of this, to be a lot better. But yeah, it's not as bad as I remember it. And then, of course, that evening, Zack Snyder's Justice League. Watched it on HBO Max. This is the 4K import from the UK, because I wasn't sure if we were going to get one over here, but we are. Wow, I've never watched a 4-hour movie and felt like it was completely worth it. This movie was amazing. I'm pretty mad that Warner Brothers did what they did and cut this down into what was given out as the theatrical version, because this is some really incredible stuff. Great character work. Everyone had room to breathe. The 4-hour runtime allowed all 6 characters, all 6 main Justice League members, to have time to breathe. Set up for future sequels we're not going to get, unfortunately, but seeing it after all of what has happened, it's amazing. It's 100% better than the theatrical cut. And it's also got 6 different chapter markers, so you can actually watch it in chunks. I honestly, if I'm going to go back and rewatch this, I haven't done a full rewatch of it. I've gone back and watched sequences. There are sequences in this movie I've watched over and over again because they just blew me away. This is a proper Justice League film. And yeah, you could watch it in 6 parts. You could watch it after, I think it was after Chapter 4. It's like the official break point. And honestly, Warner Brothers should have just done that. Released chapters 1 through 4 as one movie, and then 5, 6, and the epilogue is another movie. And maybe they wouldn't have had so much bad backlash and box office trouble by making a much inferior version of the film that added a bunch of sexist and racist things to it and put awful people in charge. Warner Brothers, you need to shape up. You're not doing great as a company because you keep employing awful people. And this, I'm really glad, finally came out, because I'm going to watch this for years to come. March 19th, Godzilla 2000. A movie I hadn't seen before, but kind of enjoyed. It's pretty neat. Nice revival of Godzilla. This came about because 98 Godzilla didn't meet Toho's actual expectations, so they went back and did it themselves. March 20th, I watched Five Riders vs. King Dark, the Kamen Rider X film, because I was watching Kamen Rider X. That movie ain't great. I don't have much to say. Totally skippable, because they do the 5 Riders teaming up better in the show than in that movie. March 21st, Godzilla vs. that's not it. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. Not a great one. It's alright. I hadn't seen it before, but it's okay. Continuing that Millennium era, we got Godzilla. So, March 22nd, Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, All Out Monsters, Giant Attack. Probably my favorite Godzilla movie of all time. Amazing. It frames Godzilla as a villain again, Ghidorah as a hero. It's that thing of, like, I've watched so many Godzilla movies where Ghidorah is the bad guy, Godzilla's the good guy. This flips the script, does some amazing effect work. I really like it. Same night, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. Absolutely amazing. This is probably the best Mechagodzilla movie, and it has one of the best female characters in all of Godzilla. And they dropped her for the sequel, Tokyo SOS, which is what I watched the same evening. But they got Gal Red in there, so it's a little bit better. But, they cut their best character for the sequel, and that was a shame. Kiryu Mechagodzilla is still probably my favorite Mechagodzilla. And then also, Godzilla Final Wars was the next day on the 23rd. Godzilla Final Wars was supposed to be the end of Godzilla. It's big, it's bold, it's stupid. I love it. It is half a martial arts movie and half, let's shove every single kaiju that's ever existed, including 98 Godzilla in it. It's bonkers. If you've never seen it and you love Godzilla, just watch it and enjoy it. Enjoy it for what it is. It's nuts. And moving right along, March 25th, King Kong Ultimate Edition. This is the extended cut of the Peter Jackson King Kong film. I like this movie a little better than I did when I first saw it, but the thing is, I watched it in theaters in 2005. I'd already seen original King Kong. I really like original King Kong. It tells the whole story in an hour and a half. This tells it in like 3 hours. It doesn't need to be this long. It's got great production quality. Sets, costumes, wonderful. CGI, revolutionary. You could have told a different story. Like, 76 Kong was kind of like what a remake of Kong should be. The similar premise, similar ideas, new story. This is the same thing from 1933, twice as long. Then the next day, Gamera the Brave, my favorite Gamera movie. This movie is about an adorable turtle that grows up and fights a giant, horrifying monster. I actually showed this one to my mom. She really liked it. We just kind of watched it. It's adorable. It's sweet. I want more Gamera movies. Gamera the Brave was really cool. March 27th, Shin Godzilla. This is a depression fest. It's also not that interesting if you're not following Japanese politics, because this is definitely commentary on how they handled the Tokushima earthquake. I'm not a big fan of Hideaki Anno, but this movie is really well made, even if I don't enjoy it that much. March 28th, Kong Skull Island. I'm watching the MonsterVerse in chronological order. Kong Skull Island, pretty great. I love this movie. It's a crazy action-adventure movie with, like, most of its cast being from Marvel films, and yeah, I really like it. It's totally nuts. Can't wait for this director to work on a Gundam movie, because he got it. He knows how to make a fun movie. But he also knows how to make a cool Kong movie, because Kong was the most badass he'd ever been. March 29th, Godzilla 2014. Watch this in 4K. I can actually see the movie now. This movie's too damn dark. Lighting's too dark, scenes are too dark, composition's too dark, and it cuts away to the humans all the time. I actually found the human story to be kind of interesting, but it does feel like they wanted to make a story about, you know, people surviving, more so than Godzilla, which the marketing was deceptive on. But honestly, not a bad film overall. I did enjoy it. Godzilla King of the Monsters is my favorite of the MonsterVerse series. Amazing. This is what I wanted. It's big, it's bold, it's got Godzilla, Rodan, Mothra, King Ghidorah, a bunch of new kaiju they made up out of nowhere. Great story where the human cast is directly involved with the events of the movie. This is a great kaiju film made in America. So, this is the best American kaiju film in my eyes. And on March 31st, I watched it on HBO Max, Godzilla vs. Kong. Here's the Blu-ray. This actually was really fun. This one's doesn't have... I don't like it as much as King of the Monsters, because King of the Monsters has a lot more of the dramatic effect to it, and a lot more of the heart and human intrigue. This is a big dumb monster movie, but I liked the big dumb monster movie. It was a fun big dumb monster movie. That being said, it could have been a little bit better. The whole Serizawa's son thing really didn't go anywhere, and that was really disappointing. And there was also a black character that got cut out of the movie by the studio. Oh wait, the studio is Warner Brothers? What a surprise. April 3rd, Coming to America. I've never seen the original. Actually really liked it. It's very much one of those 80s comedies that catches you off guard as how funny it is. Hilarious film. Absolutely loved it. Top of the line in my book. I need to get that on a nice disc at some point. April 4th, Coming to America, the sequel. That was why we were watching the first one. And honestly, pretty good sequel. Even if it toned itself back a little bit to sneak into a PG-13. But honestly, it still had some pretty raunchy humor here and there. There was a lot of edgy stuff, and it was kind of fun. I did think that overall I still liked the first film, but honestly, it was a worthy sequel. So I'm going to give it that. April 5th was First Contact Day, so watch Star Trek First Contact. One of the best Star Trek films. If you know Star Trek, you know this film's probably, you know, it's very impactful, very important to the history of Star Trek as well, for in-universe lore stuff. And I love the Borg. So why would I not love it? First Contact. April 8th, I rewatched Reiwa, the First Generation. The Kamen Rider film was a crossover between 01 and Gio. One of the best Rider films of the last decade. 01's movies all have like the same director, and he just like knows how to make a good Kamen Rider movie. Watch that one on the Toei Tokusatsu YouTube channel. It was great watching it again. If you haven't seen Kamen Rider Reiwa, the First Generation, definitely recommended. Also that same day, watched Batman v Superman again, this time with the commentary on the new 4K Warner Archive release that added the IMAX scenes. It was really neat to hear Zack Snyder talk about the film and a lot of the themes and choices he made. So I enjoy commentaries. Then April 17th started my next movie marathon binge, Fast and the Furious. And I'm going to go through this Fast and Furious because I watched all of them. So because of Fast 9 coming up, I thought, well, the only movie I'd seen prior was 8 and Hobbs and Shaw. I should fix that because I don't know who Han is and why it's a big deal he's back. Fast forward a few months, Han's my favorite character in the whole franchise. Anyways, Fast and the Furious, a movie about street racing and stealing DVD players and an undercover sting operation by a cop, is actually a movie about family and heart, and actually is pretty solid. Too Fast, Too Furious, lacking a Vin Diesel, Paul Walker, and new introductories Tyrese Gibson and Ludacris end up bringing us kind of a weird movie. It's got some of the undercover cop elements to it. They go infiltrating things. It's set in Miami. It's fun. They jump a car to a boat. It's getting a little crazy up in the Fast and the Furious world, but I very much appreciate it for introducing us to Roman and Tej, who have become two mainstays of the series. Brief break on April 20th, I went and watched the Bokenger movie, because I was watching Bokenger. Solid movie. April 23rd, Mortal Kombat 2021. Watched this on HBO Max. I didn't go out to a theater for this one. And honestly, it was pretty good. I actually thought it was better than I expected. It did a really good job visualizing the characters, but it did have a lot of story problems. But overall, I don't regret it. April 24th, started a little marathon of Kamen Rider films. April 24th, we had Kamen Rider 01 Real Time. Amazing. What an amazing follow-up to 01. It was kind of the finale I think the show really needed for its main story. And then following it up was Kamen Rider 01 Others, Metsubo Jinrai, which that movie shocked me. The ending of that movie, I was like, what? That's where you leave it? And I'm just sitting here counting the days till Vulcan and Valkyrie come out. And then April 27th, watched Kamen Rider Sabre, the Phoenix Swordsman, and the Book of Destruction. That was a 20-minute theatrical special. It was really fun seeing Kamen Rider Alpha/Go Blue be another Kamen Rider being Bacht or Kamen Rider Falchion. So, pretty cool. I'm glad he got to show up in the show, though, because that movie was light on story. April 30th, got some more archive titles in. Watched this movie called The Ice Pirates. This was one my dad bought, and this movie's weird. It's like 80s weird, and I love 80s weird. This was a good movie. If you've never seen The Ice Pirates and you like weird, wacky 80s films, I don't really know how to describe it. It's bizarre. It's in a future where ice is the most valuable thing in the world because nobody has water. So, Ice Pirates. May 1st. Back to the Fast and the Furious, we had Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. This is a movie that is generally disconnected from the rest of the franchise until Han is moved into other movies. And actually takes place after 6, thanks weird timeline stuff. This movie's funny because the main character is one of the worst drivers in the whole franchise. That dude cannot, like, make a turn without crashing into something. But honestly, it's weird. But it's not, like, a bad weird. I actually kind of enjoyed it. It's really goofy. A lot of the actors play characters that are supposed to be way younger, but they look way older. And it's actually started to become more important to Fast and the Furious because of the later films, so I definitely think it's not worth skipping or anything. Plus, Sonny Chiba's in it, and he plays a Yakuza boss, because that's what Sonny Chiba does. May 2nd, watched Lupin the Third, the First, the recent anime film, or CG animated film for Lupin the Third. I hadn't really watched much Lupin, so this was kind of a nice introduction. Absolutely joy. It's Lupin the Third at this point is just flexing its muscles at being quality. And you know, it's the first Lupin thing I watched in a while. Watched the English dub, which had the Lupin the Third Part 2 cast. Really great time. Showed this to my parents. We watched, we laughed, we had fun. It's led me to wanting to get more Lupin Blu-rays so I could watch more Lupin because it's Lupin the Third. It's a good time. May 8th, Fast and Furious, the 4th film. This one was probably my least favorite. This is the one that made the mistake of killing off a main character, only to bring her back like 2 movies later because they realized it was a stupid idea. And the movie ends up just becoming 2 angry men because Dom and Brian just argue over a dead character. But Han's in it briefly, so that's neat. May 9th, another Warner Archive release, The Wind and the Lion. This is a movie that has Sean Connery playing a desert chieftain. I'm not going to get into the overall context of this film, but it was made in the 70s, so keep that in mind. But it's actually kind of interesting. I think Sean Connery in roles generally is pretty good. And yeah, he still has a Scottish accent, even though he's not playing a Scot. I don't know. It's actually really well made. Grand epic cinematography, too. So it's got some good stuff to it, and yeah, it could have some more discussions about relevance in 2021, but 1975 standards, it's pretty solid. May 11th, we had Justice Society World War II, as well as the DC Showcase short Kamandi. Speaking on Kamandi, One of the best DC Showcase shorts. Amazing that they just basically made Jack Kirby's artwork walk and talk. It's amazing stuff. Amazing. Justice Society World War II, pretty dang solid. I really like this movie. The fact that it also connects to other DC anime movies, such as Superman Man of Tomorrow, surprised me, and is sort of building out a little bit of a universe. Lots of plot twists, and Hawkman had a leading role where he got to say more than one line of dialogue, so I'm really happy about that. Not to mention Black Canary fights essentially a kaiju. It's the year of kaiju. May 12th, Bokenger vs. Super Sentai. Same with that Bokenger run-through I was doing. That's an alright movie. That's all. May 15th, Fast 5. Fast 5 is probably like the crossover Avengers event of Fast and the Furious. Brings in Roman and Tej, brings in Han and Giselle, brings in Leo and Santos, and of course, Dom and Brian are there. And honestly, probably would be my favorite, except Letty's not in it. That's all I got. May 28th, Cruella. Watch this on Disney Plus with Premiere Access. I actually really love this one. I've not been a big fan of a lot of the live-action movies for Disney, but I do like to give a chance to the ones that try something different. Like Maleficent. It's like not just remaking Sleeping Beauty, it's telling a story of Maleficent. This isn't remaking 101 Dalmatians, it's telling a story of Cruella. The movie is way darker than I expected Disney to go, and I really appreciate that. And the soundtrack is killer, as well as the costume work in this movie is amazing. There is a sequence in the film where Cruella and her gang throw a punk rock fashion show in the middle of London, and it is probably one of my favorite things I've seen in movies this year. So if you haven't seen it, I do recommend it. May 30th, Army of the Dead on Netflix. This was another Zack Snyder film this year. It's a zombie movie, and I don't usually like zombie movies, but I actually really liked it. Took some different twists and turns on the zombie world, and it's actually pretty neat. So if you are in the mood for a zombie movie, or you want to try something that's a little different, Army of the Dead, definitely worth it. Same day, Fast and Furious 6. Fast and Furious 6, I definitely liked a lot more. One of the big reasons, Letty's back. It also has Hobbs in it, and Elena, so it had kind of everybody in it to some extent. So honestly, Fast 6, probably maybe my favorite. I haven't thought about the movies enough to decide my favorite. Plus, you don't rank family. You don't rank family. May 31st, because we were just rolling along. Furious 7. This was the one that made me sad at the end, not just because of Paul Walker's tragic death, resulting in the character of Brian retiring at the end of the film, but also kind of closed out the chapter of the character, and that hit me emotionally because I've been watching these movies and really enjoying them. And then, to keep things rolling, Fate of the Furious, same day. And this was because I'd seen this before, but it made so much more sense in context now. Like, I knew where Deckard Shaw came from. I knew why, you know, Dom would have something to be leveraged to turn evil. I knew all the characters involved. I really enjoyed this the second time around more than the first time, but it's not necessarily one of the best of the franchise. And then, of course, the next day, June 1st, Hobbs and Shaw. This was a movie I really enjoyed the first time, still enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because I knew who Deckard Shaw and Luke Hobbs were, so that made me feel like I had less of a barrier of characters when I saw it in theaters. Watching it again with all the context, it just runs together. I love how this feels like a Fast and the Furious movie, but is distinctively its own thing. I want more of these. Maybe with Han. June 6th, watched a couple movies on streaming. First one was My Spy. It was a Dave Bautista comedy where he plays a spy, and this girl ends up discovering he's a spy, and he has to like teach her how to be a spy so she doesn't expose her secret. It's a decently fun little comedy film. I think the marketing for the movie went on too long, so I felt like I saw the same trailer 100 times in theaters. So it took me a while to watch it. I did enjoy it. It was pretty funny. And then also saw Raya and the Last Dragon once it became included with the Disney Plus purchase. Pretty neat film. Cool visuals. Nice story. It's, you know, Walt Disney Animation's flexing at this point. They know what they're doing. They made another solid movie. June 19th, HBO Max offered In the Heights. And In the Heights was a musical about Washington Heights in New York, which has a large population of Dominican Republic as well as other Hispanic origins and a lot of immigrants from Latin America. And it's a movie that kind of spoke to me because of my background of heritage. And I liked a lot of the music was great. It was Lin-Manuel Miranda's composition, so it has a lot of that same kind of flavor and energy. The idea of the lyrics are dialogue in the scenes, and I really do like that. Some great dance numbers, and I did really appreciate a lot of the smaller moments of the film, like how, you know, they talk about how their ethnicities are kind of, they may get erased, and how, you know, you want to always represent your heritage in little ways to show that you know where you came from. And I really did like that aspect to it. June 20th, An American Werewolf in London. This is a movie my dad's been wanting me to see for years, and we just never got around to it. I got him to get the Arrow Video release just for us to watch it, because I love Arrow Video Blu-rays. This is one of my favorite movies ever. Like, no joke. This is the funniest horror film and the most horrifying comedy film all at the same time. For those that don't know, this is, you know, kind of an adaptation of The Wolfman. It was, you know, put out by Universal. And it has some of the most bizarre, funniest humor corresponded to some of the most horrifying horror and some of the most amazing practical effects. Rick Baker's makeup work on this movie, outstanding. I don't want to give too much away because I didn't know what to expect going in. I was like, okay, werewolf movie, An American Werewolf in London. It sounds pretty straightforward, but honestly, if you've never seen it, go look it up. It's a blast. Oh boy. It is a R-rated film, so keep that in mind. It is very bloody at times, but it is also hilarious at others. So yeah, American Werewolf in London. We're getting down to it. June 22nd, we had Batman The Long Halloween Part 1, as well as the DC showcase of The Losers. The Losers was alright. I think it was a good adaptation of the characters, but not as strong as some other DC showcase, especially Kamandi from before. And Batman The Long Halloween Part 1 was really good. This was actually, I think, just like Dark Knight Returns, I feel like the animated adaptation actually improves on the comic a whole lot, and I really can't wait for Part 2, and that's only about a month away. June 26th, I went out and saw a movie in theaters. Finally happened. Been vaccinated, so I felt safe. I do recommend doing so before you go out to theaters, just to protect yourself and your family. And if you feel uncomfortable, I felt, me and my family were like, all right, we've had our vaccines for a couple months now. You know, a lot of the science and data's worked out. Let's go see a movie. So we went to see F9, The Fast Saga, in IMAX. That was a fun theater experience. I don't know if F9 is as good of a movie as it was a good of an experience. It was nice being back in a theater. It was great seeing a big film. But the film itself actually had a lot of great character stuff. It had a lot of backstory for the Toretto family that I didn't expect to ever get, which actually was really good context. It kind of sort of set up, I think, start setting up 10, which we know 10 is going to be a two-part movie to be kind of a finale for the main Toretto family story. So I'm looking forward to that. And then Han came back, and I love that because Han's great. So honestly, F9, I think F9 is one of those movies where it's like, on its own, is it that great? Probably not. In the context of the franchise, though, it's a solid entry. June 27th, Raiders of the Lost Ark in 4K. I love the Indiana Jones films so much. These new 4K releases are incredible, and I can't wait to watch the other three. There's just been other stuff coming up. I even want to watch Crystal Skulls, how good these 4K releases are. But Raiders of the Lost Ark, absolutely treasure of a film. Absolutely, absolutely love it. Just can't recommend it enough. If you've never seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, go watch it. It's incredible. And then we're going to roll through the last couple days real quick. Because Gundam Hathaway was coming out, I could not watch anything but Gundam. Gundam was on my mind for days. So June 28th, watch the first compilation film, Mobile Suit Gundam. On June 29th, watch 2 and 3. These compilation films, I've warmed up to them over the years. The first time I watched them, I was like, oh no, look at all the stuff they cut from the original series. But the more that I've analyzed the original series and rewatched it, and rewatched these movies, they're a pretty solid set. And you can watch them on Netflix with the original mono audio, which is a step up from this Blu-ray. So go ahead and watch them if you've never seen Gundam and you want to weigh in. 3 movies will give you a good basis of the original series. Following up, June 29th and June 30th, watch the Zeta Gundam New Translation films. These aren't on Netflix, unfortunately. I feel like they should be. They're a decent version of Zeta, but I do recommend the originals. Just watch Zeta and Double Zeta. That's a better saga. This sort of cuts around a lot and changes the ending and makes it a happy ending, which I I kind of liked the melodramatic ending. I know I'm a little weird. I liked it kind of leaving on you just like a, what? Now I gotta watch the next show, and then leading into Double Zeta. So, here or there on the Zeta movies. But there's some really good music and stuff. And then, of course, I watched Shar's Counterattack for the 400th time in my life. It's the first theatrical original story Gundam film, and it's one of the best. And, of course, you're going to watch Hathaway. Whether you watch Hathaway on its own or with Shar's Counterattack prior, Shar's Counterattack's worth it. And Hathaway, I technically did start on June 30th because it hadn't quite... I don't think it had quite turned midnight, but I watched it pretty late. And honestly... mostly Gundam Hathaway, amazing animation, really great storytelling. It's the start of a trilogy, and I'm very excited that's on Netflix pretty much worldwide. So, that's all the movies I watched in 2021 for the first half. We will follow back up on this at the end of the year to cover everything from the second half, so I'll see you in January. I'm not going to talk too much longer. If you enjoyed this, leave a comment. If you hated this, leave a comment. Hit the like button to let me know you liked it. That way I know if you want to see a part 2. So, until next time, this is Soundout saying goodbye.